Our next presentation is from ETC. Jim Uphoff is going to tell us about their lights. They're a brand new sponsor of Digital Cinema Society, but they've been around for years and years.
Yes, we have.
We all know the Source 4. Now they're making some great LED lights, so Jim, tell us about it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're really excited to be here. As was just stated, we've been around. ETC as a company, Electronic Theater Controls, has been around since 1975. And we've been making lighting equipment ever since then. We started, our roots were in the theatrical community, but our fixtures that we've been making since 1992 with the Source 4 have been used in all sorts of venues, including the studio market. So we're no stranger to the studio and for lighting for camera. But we wanted to make a line of fixtures designed specifically for that were not handoffs from other industries to the studio industry. So a few years back, we started a group at ETC called the Advanced Research Group. It was a group that was part of our R&D department, and their goal was, their initial task was to do research on lighting for camera specifically, LED lighting for camera, and what the ideal array for lighting on camera might be. Spent a couple of years researching LEDs, researching cameras and monitors and all the different color spaces, 7 to 9, 20/20, that sort of thing. And they exported from that their findings, and that's what is used in these new products that we have here today. So what we're looking at right now is the Phosphor panel. This is the medium panel here on stage, but you can see on the monitor we have 3 different sizes. There's 3 different sizes available, the small, medium, and large. They are proportionally 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3 in size, so in output, wattage, all of that stays pretty consistent in that ratio. They're all 24 inches wide. There's an 8, 16, and 24 inches tall through the 3 different versions, and you can see that here. And there's 2 different arrays, and we'll talk about the arrays here in just a moment because that's really the most impressive part of these fixtures, although there's a lot going on here. So with that, there's 6 different versions of model numbers. I'm not going to spend too much time on model numbers because they're just model numbers, but you may hear things called PD8 or the PL24, that sort of thing, and that just refers to the different sizes that we have. In designing these products for this market, we knew that there's going to be some deviation from theatrical lighting. The way the fixtures are used, the environments that they're used in, the interface and the workflow of those fixtures was going to be very different than you would see in a theater where a fixture is put on a batten and run out and maybe never touched for 5 or 6 months. These fixtures have to be much more tactile. They're going to be interfaced with right at the fixture very often. A lot of times a DMX console is not even present. So we wanted to put some thought and development into that part of the workflow to begin with. We incorporated a number of technologies, the first of which is we're calling the grip rail. It's this series of channels running down the back of the fixture. This is a standard hardware size. You can go to your hardware store or go online and get T-slot accessories that will fit in this, or hardware that will fit in this, so you can mount really anything you want on the back of the fixture. We have a number of things we're offering, and you can stop by our table in the back there to see some of them, like an extra handle if you want to put a handle there, or cable ties, things like that, battery mounts. We're hoping that people come to us or create their own accessories here. This is a very resourceful industry, and so giving the ability to kind of do whatever you need to do at that time seemed like a good way to go. But the other thing that's really nice about it is that these channels are weight bearing, so they'll actually hold the weight of the fixture. So if you don't want to use the yoke and you want to mount the fixture off of this rail, you can do that with to a pipe, half Cheeseboro, that sort of thing if you're interested. One of the other new technologies that we're incorporating in these fixtures is NFC, or near field communication. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically what makes Apple Pay work, or Samsung Pay, and using your cell phone to do those transactions. We're taking advantage of the same technology that most of you probably have in your pocket right now to allow for configuration of the fixtures using your cell phone. So using an app that we're calling SetLight, you're able to open up the app, and I'll sort of pan to the camera here. Select NFC, and then I have a number of different options that include set address, pull configuration, or reset to default. So for instance, if I want to reset configuration, actually here since we're using this in the back, and I don't want to reset configuration, I'm going to do pull configuration. The app prompts me to tap it on the back of the fixture. It's now pulled that configuration off the fixture. I can make adjustments to the address, to the DMX loss behavior, backlight time, all those sorts of things. And when I'm done, I can push that change back into the fixture just as simply as I took it off. What's really nice about NFC is it does not require any power to the fixture itself. So I can power the fixture off, and I can do that same process. It uses the power of the wireless signal itself coming from your cell phone to transmit and store that data on the NFC chip in the fixture. So I can, again, pull configuration, and it can do it without power. So if I'm at a rental shop, let's say, and these fixtures just came in off the road, and I want to set factory defaults, I can do it without even pulling the thing out of the case, as long as I can get to the user interface. If I'm on site and my generator hasn't been commissioned yet, hasn't been turned on yet, and I want to go through the rig and set addressing and modes and things like that, I can do all that from my phone, and when the rig powers up, those fixtures are going to be ready to go. We have a lot of things planned for this technology going forward as well. This is just where we're starting. So that's a really great thing for workflow. We've built in wireless into these. They all have built-in wireless. We have gone with the Multiverse protocol from City Theatrical. This is a newer protocol for them, but it's based on the existing technologies that they have had and have proven for a long period of time. What's really great about this technology is that it will allow you to get up to 10 universes of DMX off of a single transmitter. So you can have significantly larger systems running off of a single transmitter. And as we go on and the fixtures get more and more complicated, the footprint of fixtures and the amount of fixtures that are being used on a production are getting bigger and bigger. And this is a great technology that's going to be able to handle the expanse and the growth of those systems. It also operates bidirectional, so you get bidirectional RDM, so you can do that configuration. And that set light app that I have will be able to connect to that base station, that Multiverse base station, via Bluetooth, and then control your rig or configure your rig from multiple fixtures at the same time from that same application. The other thing that we wanted to really concentrate on was the user interface. Like I mentioned, these are fixtures that are not just set one time and then flown out and never touched again, although there are instances where that may be the case. But a lot of times these are going to be changed and manipulated a lot over the course of a day or even over the course of a few hours. So we wanted to put things on like the handle to give it, the handles in the corners to give a good tactile place to hold on to and move these fixtures around. But the user interface specifically needed to be very quick and simple and easy to use and easy to learn. Whether or not you have a lot of experience with these technologies or not, we wanted to make this really simple and to give actual tactile feedback. So we added encoders. We have a whole new user interface here, a color display, as you can see on the screen there. And RGB backlit encoders. What's nice about these encoders is depending on what mode I'm in, as I change screens, you'll see that those encoders change color. That's because the color of the encoder corresponds to what it's manipulating on the screen. This is to help speed up that learning curve. If I turn the red knob, I'm changing whatever's red on the screen. They're also, the encoders are also buttons, so if I press an encoder, it will do the action that corresponds right above it. So I'm in the studio mode right now, which is one of our standalone modes. Pressing it goes to one of the color temperature of white presets that we have there. And then I can make this adjustment if I change a look. So I'm at 3200 Kelvin right now. If I change this to 3600 Kelvin, add a little green into it, I can then just press and hold the encoder for 3 seconds, 3, 2, 1, and it snapshots that look to that location, so I can very quickly and easily call up those different looks and have those stored in the fixture. So that's the user interface. There's a couple of modes that we have for standalone, the first of which is this studio mode, which I've just shown here, intensity, color, temperature, tint, that sort of thing. There's a field here called tune, which you can see here, and we'll talk about tune in just a moment because that's a new thing as well. We also are taking advantage of this color screen on the fixture to do a color picker. So there's a HSI color picker, which gives you a nice visual representation of what color you're mixing to. And again, once you get to the color that you want to hold on to, if you're using color, again, you just press and hold for 3 seconds, and it'll snapshot that into whatever location you'd like to save it in. And then a built-in effects engine as well. I'm going to skip, there's a preset menu here too, but it's presets. There's multiple presets you can set fade times on and play those back, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not worth spending too much time on. In the effects menu, we have a whole catalog of effects. I'm not going to step through all of them, but feel free to stop back if you want to take a look at anyone specifically. But just, again, looking at workflow, trying to speed things up. If you don't have a DMX console, or even if you do have a console on site, you can save 20, 30 minutes by not having to sit behind a console to write a fire flicker or a paparazzi camera flash, that sort of thing. If you want to just very quickly be able to get a gag effect going, you can do that right from the fixture. And there's a lot of manipulation in the fixture as far as minimum and maximum levels, refresh rate, frequency, that sort of thing, all built in there. All right. If you do have a DMX console, we have a number of different modes that are available. I'm not going to spend too much time on these as well because they're pretty self-explanatory. But we have added a new mode for us, which is called Expanded Mode, which basically combines an RGB color mixing footprint with a white light studio footprint with a mix channel in between that will allow you to mix between talking to the fixture in color temperature and tint versus RGB values, and you can fade in between those two from a DMX console. Now, I mentioned the arrays, and this is really where we get to the meat of these fixtures. ETC has been making LED fixtures for over a decade. We started with the acquisition of a company called Celador, and their claim to fame was a 7-color LED mixing engine. That was when we saw LEDs as a technology that could work side by side with traditional sources like incandescent. And eventually, as what we've seen is as we've gotten better at making these LEDs and the fixtures have gotten better and the LEDs have gotten better as fixtures that can actually replace those traditional sources. This product line, the Phosphor product line, has taken what we've learned over the last decade as far as color technology and management and combined it with the research that was done by that advanced research group that I mentioned. We've got 2 new arrays that we're offering for the first time in this Phosphor panel line. The first of which is the Luster X8, which is an 8-color array. Our previous Luster array was a 7-color system. We have now added an 8th color to that. This isn't like a razor blade thing where we just throw another razor blade in and call it better. There's legitimate reasons for this 8th color, and I'm going to step through these really quickly to show you. If you're not familiar with our Luster array, you will know, so the colors are indigo, blue, cyan, green, lime, amber, and red. Now this red is the red that we have used for the last decade. This is the red that pretty much everybody's using. It sits at about 635 nanometer wavelength, for those of you that are into wavelengths. And it's been accepted as red, and it is a great color. It's a great color mixing ingredient, but it has lacked something that is available in tungsten and other traditional sources that is really important, not only just for color mixing and getting a larger gamut of color that you can't reach without, but for rendering of skin tones and the way skin tones specifically render underneath that light, and that is the deep red wavelength. If we look at this chart, which you can see there, that standard red, which is at the 635 nanometers, versus this new deep red, which I will go to now, is 660 nanometers. And it doesn't seem like that big a difference, especially when you look at this chart, but it is a huge difference. It's that last little tungsten tail. It's that last bit of visible light before you get to the infrared range of light that is really important in making natural-looking skin tones, regardless of what skin type you have. We all have blood in our veins, hopefully, still. And skin reacts very differently to light than other objects do. A flat wall, a piece of cloth, something like that, light hits it and bounces off the surface of it. Skin is translucent, and light penetrates multiple layers down. It gets to where the blood is. It refracts the light differently, and having those elements of those wavelengths of light that represent those colors and render those colors properly is very important. So this deep red is a really important factor for that. Now that we've looked at this deep red for a little while, if I go back to the red that we have, been using to date, you can see it just doesn't really look red anymore. It looks sort of orange. And color's relative in that nature. It's, the comparison of color is something our brains sort of get accustomed to. But by including both of these reds now, this deep red as well, we're able to get to some really beautiful light that renders incredibly naturally and completely on skin tones, giving us really gorgeous rendering regardless of the color temperature that we have. So that's the 8th color. The daylight array that we have is designed specifically for variable color temperatures of white. Again, we don't use white LEDs in our engines. So the daylight array is a 6-color engine that consists of indigo, blue, mint green instead of that lime green, which we found just makes a better white light. Mint green, cyan as well, the red and the deep red. Again, this will do a whole color temperature range. Both these fixtures, both arrays will do 1900 Kelvin up to 10,450 Kelvin at the back of the fixture. But the daylight array is designed specifically for white light over 4,000 Kelvin. But if you had to do some color mixing on it, you'd be able to do that as well. And the last little bit, I mentioned that concept of tune that we had built into the fixture. And I want to talk about that very quickly before my time is up. If we look at this, the color gamut, you can see that sort of that horseshoe shape is the CIE color space, the 1931 color space. And the difference between an RGBW fixture on the left and the ETC phosphor 8-color array on the right. You can see there that the gamut is larger, right? You're able to get to more colors, and that's really important. And having those 8 colors gives you a broader range of colors that you can get to, and that's an important thing. And thank you, Craig's bringing me my props. If you're going to 3D print something, you might as well use it, right? So that's great. You can get to more colors. That's a very important thing, or that may be an important thing. But if you're just dealing with white light-wise, that's also important. So if we take this sort of color gamut, and these represent what you're seeing on the screen there, and we turn that now into the 3rd dimension. We look at the intensity at any given color. This is just a standard RGBW panel light versus our small fixture. You can see how much more color volume we are able to get to, right? So at any given color point, you can get to the brightness that you see here. And that was one of the things when we were designing this fixture that we wanted to make sure we could do. Not just really great color and lots of those colors, but a lot of those colors so that it was actually usable. Regardless of where you want to go in that color space, you're going to have enough light to actually use. The next step to that is the idea of metamers. For those of you who don't know, a metamer is a color recipe. So if I have more than 3 colors, as soon as I get past 3 colors of ingredients, I can now get to any XY coordinate in this color space more than one way. I can choose what ratio of those colors to use to mix to the same color points. So if we look at this color space, the outside of this shape basically represents the brightest version of any color point that I stop at. So if I pick an XY coordinate here, the exterior shell of this shape is the brightest version of that color. But if I drill down, straight down from any XY coordinate in this space, I can now make the same version of that, the same color point, the same XY coordinate, but a different version of that color by adjusting the proportions of the ingredients that I've put. A little less cyan here, but I'm now going to add some more indigo and blue to compensate for that sort of thing. In doing that, I can really adjust how that light renders on objects. If I'm shining them on a white wall, theoretically, it should not matter. I could run through all these different versions of the light on a white wall and you wouldn't see anything change because I'm holding that XY point. But if I'm shining it on skin tones or costumes or suits or clothing, artwork, now if I have less cyan or more deep red or whatever mix I've done, it can really change how that surface is responding and rendering to that light. And so it's a really important tool for potentially for designers going forward when they're looking at light. So we've had some of this control, this metamer control in our consoles now for the last few years in our EOS family consoles. But because of the nature of these products and because they're, like I mentioned before, this is sort of a reoccurring theme, that these fixtures are often used without a console at the fixture. We wanted to put some of that technology and that manipulation into the fixture itself. So that's what that tune function in the product is. It allows you to choose what metamer, what color mix you're using. Brightest being what our fixtures have always done in the past. We've always defaulted to brightest version of that color. But you can now use adjusting that tune function. You can go to spectral, which is the most spectrally balanced version of that color. You give up brightness to do that, but you get a more balanced color rendering. And then a hybrid, which gives you something in between, which gives you sort of a mix of the two. And now you have that functionality that you've only needed a console for before. You now have that in the fixture itself. So that's the new phosphor line. We're in the back room. If you have any other questions, you want to take a look at these, please let us know. And as well as checking out our website, which is etcconnect.com. So we're happy to be here. I thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your day.